What's up, you nerds? Welcome to my 2025 downhill bike shootout presented by Outdoor Research with support from Sweet Protection and Windrock Bike Park. What are we working with here?
This is the Commencal Supreme DH V5. It is an aluminum frame. It has a 6-bar high pivot linkage system, mixed wheels, and is rolling on Maxxis DHR2 control tires.
We've put it through its paces here at Windrock, and we'll send it back to the shop where we'll dive into this thing. Well, we just wrapped up our final day of riding here at Windrock. There's a lot of things to talk about with this bike, but I think for me, the standout feature of the entire package is just the ride feel of the frame. I think this is what Commencal has absolutely knocked it out of the park with. I mean, the suspension's good, the geo's great. We'll get into all that later, but what this bike does that I haven't felt with any of the other bikes on test is how, I think from a frame flex and compliance standpoint, just seems to mute the high frequency chatter on the trail. It actually reduces the amount of processing power that's needed to ride the bike.
Ride feel is smooth. I don't really have any other way to describe it other than that.
Our nickname for it was the Commencal.
Yeah. I think I rode this bike after day one on the canyon when I had a bit of a rough time, and I was smoked. Like, I was super tired. It was day two. I got the shit beat out of me all morning. And riding this bike was a very welcome change. It does everything quite well. It's calm to ride, which is kind of weird for an incredibly fast race bike. Maybe that's what makes it so good, is it calms things down so you can just focus on going fast.
Things happen slower. I think it coming back to the frame, I think it just takes time for energy to move through the frame. You know, I had one moment in particular where Unk got a little stiff off a jump, and I was trying to tires. I'm just too old to be doing scrubs, dude. I was trying to do some scrubs, and I fully just froze in the air and landed sideways to flat in a situation that I should have gotten completely shit whipped, and the frame just was and caught my energy, and I literally think if I was on a stiffer frame, just the energy would have been translated way quicker and I would have been on my face.
Yeah, on that topic, this frame, it wants to straighten out. At least that's the feeling I get with it, is if you land slightly sideways, it just kind of just straightens you out, in a good way. It's pretty wild. It makes a dull sound. I think that they were very conscious of essentially how, I guess, call it vibrations travel through the frame. I don't even know what year it was, but they were putting these little vibration canceling stickers on, which turned out to be a little bit of BS. But I think that shows that they were conscious of trying to get rid of that stuff a while ago. So I'm sure that when developing this bike, there was some degree of studying of how essentially vibrations travel through the frame.
It's just incredibly muted.
Yeah, in a good way.
Yeah.
It's just otherworldly in ways. It's just the way it goes over bumps is they just disappear. You just don't feel them. But then at the same time, the bike stays very level. Yeah. Regardless of what you're doing, the bike stays level, which makes it very predictable and pretty pleasant and easy to ride. It doesn't do anything weird. Another thing that I like is has really good standover height. So once again, it allows you just have a lot of room to work within the bike.
I mean, this thing feels like a sled. The standover height is super low. The weight is at your ankles. It's a very sleek frame, but it's also very wide.
Yeah.
Which just makes it kind of feel sick. It just feels like a machine. You do hit your calves occasionally, but it's not anything close to a real issue.
Just feel it, kind of bump your calf mid-corner. You're oh.
But I don't know. This bike has a stature and feel on the trail that just makes it feel almost more than a mountain bike. It feels like you have some sort of mechanical advantage that isn't available on any other bikes. This is a downhill bike in the truest sense of the word. It's got 220 mils of travel,
which is sick.
I was never bummed. I never felt like that was a downside. For how much suspension travel it has and how it just deletes trail chatter. It actually pumps and jumps fairly well. It's not as energetic as the V10. For its intended purpose, I actually still had quite a bit of fun jumping on it. And to piggyback off what Nick said earlier, just the chassis stability of the bike pitch-wise is just so predictable. I feel like under braking, it's quite neutral. It maybe squats a little bit. The chassis is just never getting pitched, and then that just adds to the air of confidence and reliability of this bike that just makes things feel like they're happening slower. One thing that was super apparent to me was the setup window for this bike, I feel like is massive.
Yeah, I agree. I could pretty much jump on this bike as Brian was riding it, and it was very much more rideable than a lot of the other bikes were. And then I just figured out I could drop about 5 pounds out of the fork and 10 pounds out of the shock, and then that was quite good for me, and I didn't have to touch anything else.
Yeah, and vice versa. I could ride your settings. A little too soft, a little fast, it was fine. A little stiff and slow, I got more response and the bike felt more settled, but that was good too. It was almost hard to dial in on a setting because I feel like everything worked. I mean, I rode this bike in Andorra on the World Cup track as well. Much higher speed than what we have on Windrock, like a very different personality of track. Without taking all these bikes to a bunch of different trails, I think the track toughness of this bike, if we're gonna call it that, the ability to go to this track or this area and ride different stuff, it just gives me that feeling that it's easy to set up, easy to ride, and it's gonna be quite good everywhere. And I think a big part of that is the Geo package. It's a really long wheelbase. It is on the longer side for reach, but that's paired with a longer rear end combined with the kind of low slung feeling. I'm very much in between the wheels, and yeah, the geometry just continues to complement the bike in a way where it can just, I feel like I can ride anywhere on it and be stoked.
Yeah, for me, I think I feel like I could ride this on a jump trail and it would be fun still for the capability that it has in every other aspect of downhill. For this one to me is very race oriented, obviously, and for a race bike of its nature, it's still, to me, it never felt like too stuck to the ground. I felt like I could get it off the ground when I needed to. It was plenty easy to maneuver. It was the only bike I actually hit the jump in the Red Bull ravine on. So it was like,
gave Unk some confidence.
Yeah, like felt solid and comfortable and just not do anything funny.
Yeah, it never did anything funny. So it's just a bike that I continue to build confidence with. By far the easiest bike for me to ride fast from like an energy perspective. I feel like today it took me 9 days to work up to and about 40 plus laps on this trail to work up to doing full runs of some sort. And I did 2 full runs today, one on the V10, one on this bike. I feel like I was able to go similar speeds. They're both incredible bikes, but I was definitely less fatigued on this bike. And for someone who's, I don't train as much as I should for what I'm doing. I'm not in the best shape as far as like racer shape. I bet I could ride this bike consistently faster just because I can hold on to it.
I mean, you're almost not even holding on. You just kind of like perch on the bike and ride down the trail. Like it was, for me, like what I've already said is I like to be relaxed when riding, not like all tense and trying to like survive. And this was very easy to do that on. You just kind of get on the bike and point it down the hill, and there's like no fight with it. Got your back.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why the tires are worn more on this bike than the others. Whenever there was an option to pick a bike, which there were a few situations where that came up to film or to ride at the end of the day, it was an easy choice. We've been kind of beat. Like, this is more downhill laps than either Nick and I have done in our entire lives.
Yeah.
And the bodies are feeling it. So whenever we had a chance to just pick a bike that was going to take care of us and it was fun to ride on those trails, it's like, yeah, I'm grabbing the Commencal. Going into some geo adjustments, the only thing I played with was the long chainstay mode. I think it's 450 stock, 455 in the long mode. I did prefer it in the long surprise, surprise. But I didn't mind it in the middle. I thought it rode good. I just think it played to this bike's strengths without many negatives, and it just added to the feeling of being planted in between the wheels, and I actually think it cornered better. I feel like it's a bike I can ride with a fairly high bar setup too.
Yeah.
And that just adds to the confidence of having a tall stack, but also being centered and having grip on the front wheel. It's kind of checking all the boxes.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if I was to spend more time on this and have the time to properly really dial it in, I think I would angle set this bike, reach adjust the bike shorter. Just give me a little bit more room to work with my arms, and then it would be probably pretty insane, and it would make the balance even better. That's just my preference at my height.
For me, I think it's kind of a sweet spot. Even though it is a bit longer, it's balanced, so it works quite well. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else? Are we done with our glaze sesh on the Commencal?
I mean, I think now having got to ride this bike, it makes sense why it's so successful racing-wise. It does you as a racer a lot of favors, I think. I could see this bike being incredibly good in the wet and slippery stuff. Something that I do find, or would now, having ridden this bike, when we had those Envies on the e-bike test. So putting those Envies on this bike to provide stiffer wheels and just see how that would work out in conjunction with the more soft chassis. I think that'd be a fun experiment. I mean, that's like what the Commencal Muck-Off team ran for a bit, and I'm sure there's a reason. So, that combination, those wheels were awesome. And then on a frame like this, I think it would be a pretty amazing combination.
Maybe the only thing I can knock it for, and it's part of the reason why it's so good, is it does have 6 bars, and it's a little complicated in there. And this bike did develop a creak. I'm not motivated enough to suss it out. But if I were to suss it out, there's a lot of places it could be coming from. Privateer downhill racer type situation, that's absolutely something to consider. But if we're just talking about performance, it performs. So that's the Supreme DH V5, halfway to a V10.
Another 20 years.
Yeah, in 20 years we might have the Commencal V10,
Kind of
which
funny.
would be hilarious.
I'll be 50 years old.
Hopefully we won't be reviewing bikes when the
Commencal Supreme V10 comes out.
Yeah, we'll see. It would be kind of sick if we did that.
Would it have...
Leave in the comments what the...
What would the Commencal V10 look like? Version 10. 10-bar suspension?
So, I don't know. That's what this version of this Commencal Supreme is about. Thanks, Outdoor Research, for supporting this whole project. It would not have been possible without them. Also, Suit Protection for protecting our noggins. Thanks, Windrock Bike Park, for providing us some awesome trails to test these bikes, and Max's Tires.
Very tired.
We'll wrap this one up. Thanks for watching. I think this is the last one. Stay tuned for the podcast type thing that we'll do tomorrow morning.